What's up, guys? Welcome to another Destiny gameplay video. Today I'm going to be reviewing the new hard raid pulse rifle Oversoul Edict from Crota's End. It has 3 standard red dot sights, fires in full auto, also has snapshot, field scout, and fitted stock. I tend to use fitted stock personally. Also has dark breaker, makes it so that you can shoot through Hive Knight shields, which is actually a pretty cool effect and certainly comes in handy in the raid. So first and foremost, with pulse rifles, you want to know what the recoil pattern is. It has a little bit of a north-right pull to it, but it's not too dramatic. And then, like I said, I tend to use the fitted stock, which tames that down a bit even more. And so it pulls more north than it does to the right. So I was pleasantly surprised with this weapon, very pleasantly surprised with how it performs in PvP. I honestly didn't expect it to be as good in PvP as it is, mainly because the abilities on the gun look to be more PvE focused. But the basic stats of the weapon, the fire rate, the mag size, all these things make it a fantastic PvP weapon. And as I found out, I took it into the Crucible for a few days and had some wild success with it. I tend to be a pulse rifle fan anyways. I think that they're pretty misunderstood and people don't use them correctly, so they don't like them. But I was pleasantly surprised with this weapon. I've had several 40-plus kill games, lots of KDs, well over 10, using this weapon. So I highly suggest, this isn't a hard weapon to get your hands on, just because all you have to do is get past the Abyss Maze on hard mode. You don't have to do the full raid, just the first section. You could pretty easily whip up a team to get that done. I don't endorse cheesing it, obviously, but it is possible, and you can do it that way too if you choose to do that. It's at least it's not cheesing Crota. So anyways, I had a lot of success with this weapon. You'll see it's very different from 3 Little Words is a pulse rifle I reviewed recently, which is very, very Crucible oriented, and it's very different from that weapon in that you can run and gun with this one. You don't have to play a specific way. You don't have to be incredibly tactical with how you use it. It's much more user-friendly. And the range on it, obviously you can run and gun and be much closer. Now, I will say that I wish the skills were different on it. Maybe not so much with the Hive Breaker. I do like that skill, being able to shoot through Hive Knight shields. But the full auto, I would love to get rid of the full auto. With pulse rifles, if you're firing in full auto, honestly, you're probably going to miss several of your shots. And so you're wasting ammo, you're wasting time, you're going to have to reload while your enemy is killing you. So even though it has full auto, I don't recommend using it, because that's going to train you to use pulse rifles in a way that's going to make them more ineffective. So I highly suggest, and this goes for all pulse rifles, with a pulse rifle, you have to be really solid about your target acquisition. Make sure you put the reticle right on your enemy, because when you pull that trigger, you're committing to a full burst, and then you're also committing to the time in between bursts. So if you miss, it's going to penalize you a lot more. But pulse rifles really, really reward players who take the time to make sure their target acquisition is spot on. Make sure that they're not just in the glass, but the reticle is actually on them. And then you'll be a lot more successful with it. So here, there's a guy with a shotgun chasing me. This is about, it kind of shows using your teammates to your advantage. I pulled him straight to a group of teammates, and they were able to drop him pretty easily. And then here, while we're neutralizing B, I push forward to the right here.
Zone B neutralized.
Get a lot of assists, but that's okay. That's part of being a team player. And then flank up behind this guy.
Gains the lead.
All around, I had a whole lot of fun using this weapon, really in conjunction with everything in my arsenal. I think that some weapons just shine really well when you use them with everything else that's available to you. So learning to use your grenades, your melee abilities, all those things in conjunction with especially pulse rifles makes them really, really highly effective. So being aware of what's cooled down can be pretty important. I liked using this weapon in conjunction with my sniper, just because I knew that when I got up close, I was effective with the pulse rifle, but then in these longer sight lines like that, I could use the sniper to my advantage as well. Again, that's the longbow synthesis. I highly recommend that weapon to anybody. That's a great sniper rifle.
Heavy ammo inbound.
So I like the bulkiness of the gun, kind of aesthetically. I think it's very appealing aesthetically. It looks pretty cool. It's not really narrow, but it kind of bulks up down around the edges when you're aiming down the sights. It kind of has a pretty cool effect. So here you see I get these 2 kills, and then I get pretty outnumbered. I got guys on my right, guys on my left. So there's at least 3 of them, so I just turn and run, decide to let them have that objective. Instead, I'm going to come back here and protect Charlie. And it's decently accurate from the hip, so feel free to hip fire with it as well. Now, I'm going to be honest, I really do think that this is my favorite of the new raid primaries. I like Word of Crota, I like it a lot. And if you haven't seen my video on the Word of Crota, feel free to check that out. I show that it's really effective in PvP. And once you learn to control the strange recoil pattern on it, it's really deadly. And I really do like that weapon, but I think I just like Oversoul Edict a little bit more. I had a whole lot of fun running and gunning with it, not having to think about playing super tactical. And then here again I get overrun. There's at least 2 or 3 enemies there, so after getting several kills I just duck out, decide to let them have A, because on Shores of Time it's kind of okay if they take A. You kind of prefer to be back here with B and C. They're much more easily defended. And these long sight lines in the back here make for a lot of fun. So this here was a game I ended up with over 40 kills and like a 7-something KD. So I've said this before and I'll say it again. I don't think that pulse rifles need buffed. I think that there are some pulse rifles that are somewhat ineffective, but this is a good example of a weapon that the Oversoul Edict has a high rate of fire and low impact. And those are generally the pulse rifles that people complain about the most. They say that they're not that effective. Sometimes people will say, okay, 3 Little Words is a good exception to the rule. It has high impact and it's pretty effective in PvP. And that's true. But these high rate of fire, low impact ones, they aren't worthless. In fact, this weapon in particular, I mean, it doesn't have crucible skills on it. I would much rather have Head Seeker or Reactive Reload instead of firing in full auto. And then it's got the Hive Breaker skill, which has nothing to do with PvP, but even so, this gun is super effective. It has a great rate of fire, and if you're really smart about target acquisition and you're not pulling that trigger unless you're really sure that you want to fire, and you're not wasting your bursts and the time in between, then it's going to be highly effective for you.
Heavy ammo available.
So I don't think that pulse rifles need a buff. In my opinion, pulse rifles are the most tactical weapons in the game. So here, this is the very beginning of the match. I decide to rush Charlie like I normally do. That's kind of how I do it. Clear a few guys off of it and take it. And then this was a good example of a game where a pulse rifle really was pooping on shotgunners, because this whole team, everyone was using shotguns, which isn't very rare these days. And it's not that you can blame people, because honestly, the way that these maps are designed, they really do favor close quarters combat. Sure, shotguns can be annoying, and lately I haven't been using them at all, but I'm not a weapon elitist. I think if someone chooses to use a shotgun, it's because it's supposed to give them a pretty good tactical advantage in these closer quarters. So in that particular game, and I think you'll see some of this later, I stayed just out of arm's reach of shotgunners, and this weapon shines the best at sort of a short middle range, which is just out of reach of shotguns.
Zone C neutralized.
So you'll see here, it's dropping guys really quickly, frankly. If you're landing your shots, the time to kill is pretty short, and it's highly effective. So you'll see here, I saw that guy on my radar, so what do? I jump up. One of the things that, and I've said this in some of my other videos, one of the things that can immediately change your PvP gaming and really dramatically increase your overall survivability and skill in the Crucible, changing one thing, and that's the use of your vertical space. A lot of people see maps as very two-dimensionally. They see it as the plane of the map that you can walk on, that two-dimensional plane. But all the space above the map is also usable space, and finding out how to use it to your advantage can totally change how good you are in PvP. And you'll see that if you look at any of my videos, you'll see that I spend a lot of my time in the air. And that is what lends itself to my KD here, 5.5, 3.36. These are the scoreboards from the matches I just took that footage from. 42 kills at 3.5 KD. 2.55 here. I came into that one late, so I didn't manage to top the leaderboard. 33 kills at over 2.0, and then lastly 2.36. So you can use a pulse rifle, specifically this one, and kick butt in the Crucible. But I also like to answer the question, how does the weapon stack up in PvE? Some of you guys are PvE junkies and you don't spend much time in the Crucible. Well, I like PvE too, and I spend a lot of my time in strikes, the rock strike list in particular, and I also spend a ton of my time in raids. This weapon can certainly hold its own in PvE. It's a captain killer. It does a great job taking down captains. Anything with arc shields, really. I found it's not just effective against Hive. Certainly, yes, it is very effective against the Hive with the extra damage to Hive Majors, with being able to shoot through the Knight shields. But it generally does well with just about any type of enemy. I took this up against Vex, Cabal, Fallen, and Hive, and had a lot of fun doing so. So certainly able to hold its own, especially against Thrall. You just keep it at head level and just keep pulling the trigger. And then with Hive, the ability you see here to shoot through those shields definitely comes in handy. It keeps them from regenerating their health. And you see it here. This one guy that's super annoying in this strike, that boomer up there, takes care of him. Well, guys, I certainly hope this was helpful for you. Feel free to leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of the weapon. Feel free to like and subscribe. I really appreciate you checking out the vid.